Invincible is back this week with the fourth episode of Season 3, and this was truly an episode of two halves. The first half focused on Mark and Eve's newfound relationship, along with Mark being taken to the future to stop a tyrant ruler who had destroyed civilization and was treating civilians like prisoners. The second half centered on Nolan and Alan, exploring Nolan's mindset as he struggled with the guilt of betraying both the Viltrum Empire and Earth. A massive revelation at the end introduced an appearance from Thok, hinting that the Viltrumites may finally have a weakness. Let's dive into the episode and break it all down. Warning: this video contains spoilers from the episode and the comics. One of the key focuses of this episode was Mark being taken to the future by Dropkick and Fightmaster, two characters who appeared at the start of the season when they stole the Declaration of Independence. Mark was taken into the future because Earth was being ruled by a tyrant king who had stripped all power away from the people, forcing them to live under strict, oppressive rule. When Mark arrived, he discovered that the ruler was actually the Immortal. Having lived for so long and witnessed the deaths of everyone he ever loved, the Immortal had lost his sanity. He even forgot who Kate was, his fiancée in the present timeline, highlighting just how far ahead in the future this was. One of the biggest revelations was that it was Mark himself who had given the Immortal control over Earth before fleeing the planet. This happened after the war with the Viltrumites and Thrag. Mark believed Earth would be better off under the Immortal's rule, rather than his own. As part Viltrumite, Mark carried the DNA of the very species that had brought devastation to the planet. He saw the Immortal as a worthy leader, someone who was both human and strong enough to protect Earth from future threats. However, as we saw in this episode, things didn't go as planned. It was refreshing to see the Immortal struggling with the burden of his powers. Fiction often portrays immortality as desirable, but outliving everyone you've ever loved can be a curse. The weight of experiencing infinite grief is unimaginable, and it's no surprise that the Immortal wanted to end his suffering. This raises the question, were his actions a result of complete mental breakdown? Or did he do something so extreme that it would force Mark to return and stop him? It's likely a combination of both. But one thing stands out: why didn't the future version of Mark return? Why was it past Mark who was pulled into the future to fix things? Could the future Mark be dead? Mark's reluctant decision to kill the Immortal was another moment reinforcing the recurring theme of death in his life. Throughout Season 2, he tried to escape the violent nature of being a Viltrumite, yet in Season 3, he's been forced to embrace it more and more. He continues to mirror his father's actions, despite his best efforts to lead a different path, especially for Oliver's sake. His reaction, "Don't thank me. Please, please don't thank me for that," perfectly summed up his internal struggle. However, I don't think the Immortal is gone for good. Mark's warning, "Make sure you keep the parts separate, or I'll come back," suggests there's more to this story, and perhaps even more to this timeline. Nolan and Alan's time in this episode filled the final 20 minutes with action, character development, and dedicated time with Nolan that felt long overdue. Nolan still felt like he deserved to be punished for betraying both the Viltrumites and his family, Debbie, Mark, and many other families on Earth, so much so that he was prepared to die for it. Despite Alan suggesting they break out and find Mark to prepare for the war, Nolan refused. This was a completely different side to the Nolan we saw in Season 1. If anything, it showed how his time on Earth changed him. Emotions like guilt and regret surfaced. And when Alan was being beaten by a Viltrumite soldier, Nolan's anger and rage caused him to break free from his shackles and take down the soldier. This demonstrated a newfound care for Alan, even though Alan exaggerated his injuries to motivate Nolan. This episode also saw the return of Battle Beast, the intergalactic warrior who takes pride in fighting strong opponents. He relished the idea of battling the Viltrumites and seemed eager to meet his demise at the hands of a worthy adversary. With Battle Beast and a Viltrumite floating off into space at the end of the episode, it's clear he will return. He's a great side character who thrives on combat, and if the show decides to kill him off, it will likely be in a spectacular fashion. A major revelation at the end of the episode came when Nolan and Alan killed the Viltrumite soldier. They learned that no reinforcements would be sent after them, because the Viltrumites were keeping a massive secret. There were fewer than 50 pure-blooded Viltrumites left in the universe. Losing 2 more meant they couldn't afford to send additional forces, as their numbers were already dangerously low. Given their mission to expand their empire across the universe, this revelation suggested their dominance was beginning to wane. Nolan's realization of their vulnerability led him to say, "That's why we can defeat them," marking his decision to fight against the Viltrumites. He has now chosen his side, solidified his new identity, and is ready to take them down. It will be interesting to see his return to Earth, and how characters like Cecil and, more importantly, Debbie will react. She spent Season 2 mourning him, and is only now starting to move on, especially with her new partner. This was a really strong episode. While getting 3 episodes at once is great, having a single episode to digest makes for a more enjoyable viewing experience, and this one delivered. Mark and Eve's storyline served as the emotional core of the episode, while everything else built around it. Mark's brutal killing of the Immortal was shocking, and Nolan's sentencing a prolonged, brutal beating was a horrifying way to face execution. Every punch lingered, making the scene all the more unbearable. The use of time travel was handled well, with small details adding depth. For example, Mark's confusion about his future self's sadness when his clothes were taken away was a clever touch, making sense only later when we saw the full picture. The mix of comedy and smart storytelling worked well here. The episode's split structure could have been disruptive, but instead it felt seamless. The use of a narrator to recap Alan's story and add humor to Mark and Eve's dynamic was a great addition. It showed that while the show takes itself seriously, it also knows when to have fun. Comparing this season to Season 2, by this point, I was more engaged in Season 2's storyline. However, Season 3 seems to be building towards something massive, something even bigger than the Season 2 finale. This feels like a slow burn with a big payoff, so I'm ready for the long game. Now at the halfway point of the season, it remains as bloody, gory, humorous, and emotional as expected. Hopefully, it continues on this trajectory in the coming weeks. That wraps up Invincible Season 3, Episode 4's breakdown. If you want more Invincible episode breakdowns, click the card in the top corner for the playlist. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss a video. What did you think of this episode? Share your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.